No more mic problems. No more mic problems. What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing well. Today, I thought we would chat a little bit about some common therapist struggles. Any therapist struggles. It could be about private practice or not. You could be early in your career or a well-seasoned therapist or anything in between. I just want to give some more airtime to the idea that, you know what? Therapists are human. Therapists don't have it figured out. That's kind of been a theme on some of my recent episodes in particular, so I thought we would continue that theme today. Part of the reason why it feels important to talk about this is, at least for me, for the longest time, especially as a trainee, I always had this perception that therapists seemed to have their stuff everything figured out. They didn't have struggles, or their struggles were these little small beans things that were not real struggles. And then I would judge myself for any struggles that I was experiencing. And the reality is we all have different kinds of struggles. And so let's talk about them. So in order to tackle this, I thought it'd be fun to put a poll out on Instagram, inviting you all to share what are some of the things you still struggle with as a therapist. And I just left it open-ended. 20 of you responded. Thank you. I know that's a really vulnerable question. I always keep these anonymous just because that's what feels like the right decision. So that's why I do it. And we're going to talk about some of the themes that came up in your responses, and I'll sprinkle in some of my thoughts as well as we go. Also, just so you know, I've entered summer schedule mode, so I'm going to take a more chill approach to my episodes over the summer because I got some vacation days coming. My kids' schedules are different. So, it might be a little bit more chill, more chit-chatty. It might mean some of my episodes are a little bit shorter or a little bit less edited or fewer skits so that I can just have some more time for me. And I hope you're doing the same where you can and appropriate. But yeah, thanks for, I didn't ask your permission, but thanks for being cool with me taking a more chill approach to these episodes. Also, for last week's episode, I didn't even realize while I was recording that I was having some audio issues, and then I went to edit the episode and it was a little bit of a struggle. So hopefully that doesn't happen this week, but if it happens again, I will do some troubleshooting. Okay, let's dive into the episode. I've talked a little bit before about why? We don't need that. Check. Oh my goodness, I just said all that stuff about my audio giving me trouble, and then my memory card died, and now I have one with just 18 minutes of space on it. So we're gonna roll through this. I can't believe that happened, but here we go. So let's just dive right into it, and maybe it'll be a little bit of a shorter episode, but such is life. I'll get a new SD card. So the first most mentioned category of struggle that therapists responded with in my post was private practice related, and that was items falling in the category of business and practice management. So some of the responses people gave were charging for no-shows, charging late cancellations, dealing with people complaining, and work-life balance, billing, letting go of insurance, and they say, I value access to care but hate insurance with a passion. Someone else says, filling my schedule with clients. What is the best schedule? And getting private pay clients. So all of these are very much seemingly specific to private practice and kind of the business, the management of the practice, and less about the kind of clinical things that can come up. And I think I just want to speak to that for a second. Private practice includes a whole slew of skills that, at least in my experience, are not taught in graduate school. And certainly, if you want to become a therapist, you absolutely don't need to, pursue working in private practice. But a lot of us end up in private practice. So it just seems like there's a lot of things I learned in graduate school that I didn't end up using. Like how many semesters of Rorschach did I take? And I've given no Rorschachs since getting licensed. So, but I sure use my private practice related skills a lot. And none of that is stuff that I even got one lecture on in grad school. So that's my little side rant is we should make it accessible to learn about private practice in grad school. Maybe not a required course, but certainly an available course. Certainly you can also, learn outside of graduate school. But yes, private practice involves a slew of business related skills, and also it can feel, at least, incompatible with our more clinical skills. I'm trying to figure out how to, charge for somebody missing for a session. Like that's a wise business move, but it could also feel like it's damaging to the therapeutic relationship, especially depending on like how we look at it versus if we say like, we're holding a boundary that we should clearly state from the beginning if we still charge for, no-shows or canceling on really short notice. We should be telling our clients that right at day one. I go over that with all of my clients, like before we even start to the first session, really. So there's no surprises, so that then when they no-show, they go, yeah, I know I still owe you for this session. Go ahead and charge my card. There's no one's surprised. And the next category of response that people gave was kind of in the realm of self-doubt, imposter syndrome, like questioning ourselves and our abilities, which is just, it's so human. Not everyone struggles with self-doubt. Not everyone struggles with imposter syndrome, but I think most of us do. Maybe we might not feel that way all the time, but at least sometimes we have this like, do I know what I'm doing? Am I really qualified to be doing what I'm doing? Like that's kind of a human experience, I think. So some of the replies people gave were just imposter syndrome, answering my question, what do you struggle with? Another person says, 15 plus years, and I still worry at times if I'm an effective clinician, AKA imposter syndrome. Oh, yes, I understand. Someone else says, concerns about losing it all, even though I have been in practice for years and am overall successful. Yeah, that kind of scarcity mindset. Like even if everything's going great today, and it's been going great for maybe even years, this like, am I going to just lose it all? Like, is this all a fluke? I've had that mindset creep in so many times because I've had this successful business model now for it's like been over a decade. It has not been a fluke so far, but there's still this part of my mind. And like I teach about private practice and I'll still have these moments where I'm like, but was that just like a random, luck of the draw situation? And it's like, there's some statistically small chance that could be the case, and our brains can latch onto it and decide that must be the case. I guess I'm not necessarily sharing these categories now in order of like who gave the most responses, because the next category just feels related to the one I just shared. But boundaries and work-life balance was a little category that popped up. A few of the responses in here say balance, just that's it, balance, their biggest struggle. Another says, feeling smothered by others' negativity all day, causing fatigue. Ooh, that's weighty. And somebody else says, speaking up for myself, which I wonder, that could be speaking up for yourself with clients, or it could be speaking up for yourself in your workplace, or maybe all the above. Yeah, it can be really hard to find balance, especially when we give so much of ourselves to the work that we're doing. Like by definition, we hopefully genuinely care for our clients. We're not just sort of robotically, algorithmically giving some intervention and not feeling anything. Like that's not what therapy is. It is this genuine human connection that we share with folks. And so when we give human connection, it costs us a lot. It can be really hard to find a sense of balance between caring for others and caring for ourselves. It can be really hard to, advocate and speak up for ourselves because, we're really invested in the relationships that we have. And even, it might cost us a lot as we just carry the burdens of our clients, especially when they're going through sometimes very traumatic experiences. So it is so important. I do sometimes feel like a broken record because I emphasize this, I think, quite a bit, but it is so important to find support. And I know it's so easy for me just sitting here saying to my camera, go find support. And it's not always easy to find support. Maybe you've had support and it's frayed for different reasons, or you live in an area where there's not very many other therapists, or the other therapists have like a really different value set and worldview than you do, and you're judged by them. I don't know. There's so many things that can go wrong, or you feel like other therapists are competitive and they're, just in it for themselves. And I empathize deeply with that. So it can take quite a bit of effort. I think we know that it takes a lot of effort because so many therapists feel so isolated, but I really do think that is a really valuable, effective way to help you cope with setting boundaries, finding work-life balance, is just finding really supportive environments where there's other therapists who get it, who see you, support you, gently call you out if you need to set a boundary and it's not, you haven't, that they're going to help you kind of hold up that boundary. But yeah, that feels really tough if you don't have that kind of support. And the next category of struggle that folks shared was related to clinical skills and interventions, like second guessing our own skills. Here are some of the responses in this category. Someone says, knowing when to cut in when a client is a talker. And then they say parentheses, practicum student here. Yes, that doesn't just happen to practicum students. I still struggle with that one sometimes. I think for me, mostly because most of my clients don't tend that way. So then when I have one pop up, I'm like, oh, right. I might have to interrupt this person. And that's so unnatural for me. In the clinical, I'm actually really good at interrupting in my personal life, I should clarify. But in the clinical setting, I really struggle with interrupting. So yeah, that takes practice. It takes practice. You might need to like practice it in consult group or supervision or something, just like on purpose interrupting. Like, okay, we're gonna pivot here. Sometimes when I interrupt, if I feel uncomfortable, I'll just say, excuse me for interrupting, but, and then I'll name the reason why I'm interrupting. I'm just being mindful of our time, or I'll have kind of statements that I'll give it. And most people are able to be like, oh, right, yeah, back on track. Thank you. Someone else in this category just said silence. Yes, isn't silence so uncomfortable? That was only a few seconds, and I bet you were already uncomfortable, so I understand. Someone else says, saying the right open-ended question to encourage insight. Oh, I feel like there's so much, even just in that phrasing, like calling it the right open-ended question, when maybe there isn't just like the right open-ended question. There's probably just an array of good enough open-ended questions. And if you try one and it doesn't really get you in the direction that you're wanting to go, that just means that it's time for another open-ended question. I mean, I don't want to take one small sentence and be like, I think I know what's going on here, but that was just kind of a reaction I had to seeing that phrasing of calling it like saying the right open-ended question. So if you have that pressure of like, I need to ask the right question, it might be less about asking the right question and more about like, oh, we're just exploring. I have maybe a list of really helpful questions in general, and let me run through them and see which ones are most helpful. I got you. And another one in this category is fixing. They say, sometimes I have to check myself. I get that temptation so much of like, if I just give the right advice, maybe it'll fix everything for this client, because that would be great for them, but that would also be great for me because I'm watching them suffer right now, and it would be a lot more comfortable, I think, for all of us if we could just help them. So I empathize with that as well. And someone else says, when to suggest to a client that they are ready to graduate from therapy. Oh, I love that one. That is my favorite. I love when I'm watching a client just having progressed through their treatment goals and being able to say like, hey, I'm just curious to check in on something. I noticed when you first came in, or the last time we checked in about your treatment goals, this is what you said you wanted to work on. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, how do you think that's going? Like, can we check in on those? And usually I don't say, hey, by the way, I'm thinking you're ready to be done with therapy, but it's kind of like, oh, hey, you said you wanted to work on these things. How are those things going? And so it's like so delightful to me to be able to watch them kind of go like, oh yeah, I guess I am doing that, or I guess that's not really an issue anymore. And then I'll just check in and say, okay, awesome. What do you think you'd like to do about that? And then, sometimes they're like, I don't know, what are you supposed to do now? And then I'll say, well, some people decide that they've accomplished what they set out to accomplish in therapy and they'd like to move on, and that's totally okay. And sometimes people want to pivot and focus on something else. Let's talk about it. So I think maybe there are ways to approach it where it doesn't feel like you have to say like, you need to be all done now, bye-bye. But seeing it more as like, oh, let's celebrate what you've accomplished so far. You're doing an amazing job. And what would you like to do next? All right. And then we touched on this next one a bit already, but there was one response that was in the category of like feeling isolated. This person says, feeling connected to other therapists. We get real judgy with each other, especially around, quote, ethics. Yeah, there are some, I used to be that person that was like, we don't do that. This is the only way to do things. And listen, I have to choose my words. I'll put it this way. Can we uphold like the big no-nos? The ones that like clearly are damaging to our clients are without question, make sure we uphold those standards. And then if there's things that feel a little fuzzy, can we look past that so we can have some therapist friends? That would be really nice because we have enough divisiveness in the world and we don't need to add more reasons to be upset at each other as a human race, in my opinion. I don't know, was that a hot take? I'm always nervous when I say stuff like that. I hope that was okay. Well, I swapped out SD cards because the other one died and I only have like a minute left. So I think I'm gonna sign off here. If you are finding yourself struggling for whatever reason, just know you're not alone. Know that there's help. And I support you going and seeking support, or just, validating yourself within yourself is also quite valuable. And before we close, I'd like to thank TherapyNotes.com for sponsoring today's video. TherapyNotes helps with all of your practice management needs, from scheduling to notes to billing, and they have a whole suite of AI features to streamline your entire practice management process. You should definitely check it out. If you'd like to check out TherapyNotes, you can get 2 months to try it for free with no commitment just by clicking the link in the description of this video. Well, thank you again for joining me. I'm sorry for the quick ending. My SD card is literally going to run out right now. So I'm going to sign off here and hope that my technology holds up for this week's episode. See, I struggle too, I guess. It comes in all shapes and sizes. And I hope you found this supportive and interesting. And until next time, from one therapist to another, I wish you well.